Hey everybody. So my talk is called LMAO, Your Way During Incidents, and that is a short acronym, of course. But you can also laugh. So a little bit about myself. I'm Richard Lewis. I'm a senior DevOps consultant with 3 Cloud Solutions, and I've been in the IT industry for about 20 years. Started out in operations, majored in computer networking, and then decided that is not for me. Did a tour of duty as a database administrator. Anybody here do that? Any like that? There we go. And then moved into software development where I was like, oh, I love it. I get to be creative. And then realized I have a niche for consulting and being a developer advocate. In the Chicagoland area, I run the Chicago Monitoring Enthusiast user group. We mainly focus on observability and monitoring. We're product and platform agnostic, so our talks that we talk about are all over the board. Since COVID, we went online, and for some odd reason, we have a large following now from São Paulo, Brazil. I don't understand why, but they love it. And as you can tell, I'm a diehard White Sox fan, so shout out to the Barons too. Woo. So a little bit about my company, 3 Cloud Solutions. As I mentioned, we're a consulting firm. We mainly focus on Azure. We're a Microsoft partner, and Microsoft considers us to be the largest pure-play Azure service provider. Those are our practices. Again, we focus on Azure, some other stats on there too. I don't know. All right, so why LMAO? I really like this picture, and I thought it was hilarious. This guy's looking at alerts in my mind. We're gonna call him Joe to go with that last talk. And I think he's drinking milk, because it looks like there's something white in that glass, or protein shake possibly. But this guy's looking at his phone, just got an outage alert, and he's like, awesome, let's do this. So as you can tell again, like I said, my talk, I had to go reshape it because everyone's talking about observability and monitoring, right? And SRE. So I'm just gonna recap everything that we've talked about over the last day or so. So what I'll be talking about is gonna be platform support strategies. It's gonna be creating a knowledge and safe environment for your employees so they can feel like they're set up for success. We're going to talk about mean time to resolution, and then building that confidence and psychological safety net that's there. So I like what you said in your talk. So the things that you need to make this successful is, of course, logs, metrics, alerts, and an observability tool. And there is no shortness of products out there. I looked at this list the other day, and I saw what Jeremy had on his sheet, and I was like, there's so many products out there. Like, anyone can have a product. Just raise your hand if you see any product out there that you possibly use. Yes, exactly. There's a lot of hands up out there. So there's no right product. The product's the right tool for the right situation. I thought about originally in my original deck, I actually had like a gun collection, and I was like, when the bump in the night comes, which one do you pick? But then I was like, no, that maybe, you never know. But again, this is Alabama, so maybe so it may work, I don't know. So yesterday in the talks, we heard a lot from a lot of people. We heard Leslie talk a lot about patterns and support and the stack of that's required for a good pyramid. We heard about her talking about effective observability and microservices architecture. We heard Elizabeth talk about building high-performance teams with empathy from the leadership so that everyone feels safe. And then we heard PJ talk about the philosophies versus what we're actually doing, which, I mean, I think we're all guilty of like, hey, we're gonna do this, but we don't really do it, right? Or we do it halfway. Like, how many of you guys have an agile team that does waterfall? I think we're all guilty of that, or we've seen it done somewhere. So if you're not familiar with logs and metrics are those things that, you know, keep us alive and notice what's going on with our systems. Good ways to have your logs and metrics set up are retention policies. Those policies are usually set up around what's appropriate for your service layer. I wouldn't recommend keeping every log forever, because next thing you know, you have like a massive bill of storage, either on-prem or in the cloud somewhere. locations where you're keeping those logs, it's good that you want to identify those locations, so that way, when those alerts go off in the middle of the night, the person on call could be able to react real fast and know where they need to go. And they're able to identify what those issues are in those logs. I just remembered something. Like, I just realized that we're up here, there's a bar, and no one's made a joke about a bar yet. I don't understand why. So let me try something. Why did the DevOps, so the DevOps engineer walks into a bar. 2 years later, he walks out as an SRE engineer. Because now that's the hottest title, right? So this one here, this is my nightmare. Like, so my first job when I actually moved into a role where I stopped doing the network support and started doing application support, they gave me a pager. This is my pager. It was so scary, I hated it. Worst thing ever, still hate this stupid pager. I'm from Chicago, Schaumburg area, so Motorola. They made these things. When I left that company, I actually took this pager and I threw it at their headquarters. It was across the street, so it was easy to do. It's not like I went out of my way to go find it, but I was like, take it back. But those alerts, we didn't really have an alert practice there. It was more of like, any kind of error, send a page. And it sucked. Our application was built on Access 97. And Access 97 has a database limitation of 100 megabytes. I had 120 users using an Access 97 database. So corruption was happening every 10 minutes, probably, no matter what day of the week it was. We didn't have a strategy, so I was the on-call support guy. They realized it got expensive, then they made me salary. And I thought that was a good thing, but then I realized it was a really bad thing. And so I continued to get these pages. And at the time, when I did this was 2007, so there was no like VPN into your company network or anything like that. So it was literally go to the office Saturday morning, go to the office Sunday, Monday, resolve the issue, write a little notes about it, and then leave. So after the first 3 months of doing this, I was like, I'm gonna quit, or we need to figure something out here. Either I'm starting experiencing alert fatigue if you can't tell. So we need to either come up with a strategy of someone else is doing this, like a rotation or something like that, or we figure out a way to cut down these noise, we figure out a way to make this better and more resilient so it doesn't keep crumbling like this. First solution, let's upgrade from Access 97 to Access 2000. That took us from 100 megabits to 500 megabits. Yeah. Access, yeah. Whew. No, awful idea, awful idea. And this is how I became that accidental DBA. Because then I started using Twitter and I learned about SQL. So I got introduced to SQL 2000 and migrated that little Access database into a SQL database server. Shout out to the shadow IT people here. Okay, there's none, surprisingly. Well, I shadow IT to that bad boy, used my corporate credit card, $500 limit. Got Dell to charge me $500 a month for a year to cover the cost of my Dell server that had SQL licenses on it. And I stayed below that limit, so no one ever noticed it. But my boss knew about it, so my boss was okay with it at least. My boss's boss probably didn't realize what was going on. And I left that company in 2012, so they can't fire me now. Understanding your signal to noise ratio is what I'm trying to get to on there. Alert fatigue is a real thing. You're gonna force your people to do something crazy, something bad, something you really don't want them to do, something security is gonna freak out about now. And that takes me to my next topic, observability. So those executives, they love those TVs, don't they? They love that dashboard and those stupid TVs. I don't understand why every executive I talk to are like, hey, we need to have our observability monitoring tools on TV. I still don't know why. Or I don't like the people either who have 14 monitors in front of at their desks. I mean, like, do you really need 14 monitors? But on those monitors, though, they do have a lot of different metrics that's happening. They have a lot of different KPIs, systems, indicator tools that they're looking at, or service levels. This actually dashboard up here, I thought was actually pretty good and useful in the middle part. I don't understand the weather part, but I assume it's something to do with the amount of time that they may possibly be collecting energy. It seems like this one's talking a lot about some kind of server farm. But I like dashboards like this. So this one here is actually an example from a dashboard from New Relic. Necessarily not saying that this is a good product or anything like that, but what's being identified on the dashboard is what's important. So what the person's seeing is how their application's doing, how their microservices are doing. So they're understanding the failures that are happening, the amount of violations that are happening against their alert policies. They're seeing the logs being ingested in there. They're seeing a saturation rate, memory usage, and an apdex score. How many of you guys know what an apdex score is? All right, so for those who don't know what an apdex score is, it's a score of your error rate over a sustained time. It's a calculation put together by, we'll just say like the APM folks out there, those companies. So if you look at Dynatrace, you search Dynatrace apdex score, you'll find something. New Relic apdex score, you'll find the details about that. Datadog, same thing. Pretty much any kind of APM tool will have the ability to give you an apdex score and tell you how your system's doing over time versus the number of users hitting it and an error. You know, a good score, I just don't really know what a good score would be. It depends on your application. But in your observability playbook, what you're going to want to put in there is going to be like a permanent link or some kind of reference to this documentation as to the dashboard and what good indicators are. So it takes me to my next stuff. It's preparation and training. So I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest. We do a lot of tornadoes. You guys do tornadoes here? Yeah. All right. So you know this whole, you guys probably learned this in school too, right? The duck and cover. I'm not really sure what this really means because I saw Twister and I don't think you would survive that way. You just go right up. But again, this is Alabama, so Crimson Tide, right? So run it again, Mr. Hunt. So preparation and training for your teams to understand what they should be doing, what they should know, what the signals should be for the applications that they're running. So having a playbook ready to go for them is a good practice. Not necessarily having it in a certain system, but just at least as well as the teams know where they can find it. I'm 50-50 on the systems these days because as we'll hear about in the next talk, I don't know if you really want to have your login systems tied into the cloud too much. And hi, shout out. That's going to be a good talk. So next thing is practices for chaos engineering. So we heard everyone talking about chaos engineering theory. Again, it was created by Netflix. The goal, again, is to increase the resiliencies and make it feel safe and okay to experiment and fail. So identifying those gaps, failure points, and things like that. And this gives you the good opportunity to, document what those possible failures would be and how to possibly resolve those things. Postmortems. I saw this photo, for postmortems. I thought about showing some document samples, but then I was like, oh, this seems more like a better postmortem. So, usually when there's an outage, the first things that you're going to do after you've concluded everything like that, hopefully, is you're doing like a run through with your team of what happened, why it happened. And then you got those executives who are like, how much money did we lose? And so that's where I thought about this. And I was looking at the photo and I was like, good gravy. That guy even signed his own tag on his toe too, if you notice he's got a marker there. But postmortems are important. Postmortems, you'll go through what went right, what went wrong, possibly where did you get lucky at in some cases, and just get it to work right. Google did a great book on SRE, And there's a huge section in it about postmortem and postmortem culture. You can see it actually being lived and done through AWS whenever there's an outage there, or Azure whenever there's an outage. You see the first things that come out are about the postmortems. For example, like the postmortem that we saw from Azure recently about what happened with their data center in terms of the outage related to the Azure login, AD login failure. And they talked about everything that happened, which was the cooling system went down in one data center. As it began to fail over into the other part of the data center, that data center suffered some kind of weird power loss during that replication of data, which then at the same time when it came back online, it replicated globally. So it became a nightmare. And it took like a while for them to actually put it out, but they went through what they learned from that experience, what they're gonna do better on it, and where they think that they saw opportunities for improvement. So I just realized that I am moving really, really quick because I took out a lot of slides, and I'm hitting the end already. So my takeaways from today is putting together an LMAO system in place, which is logs, metrics, alerts, and observability, right? And then having the appropriate documentation ready to go, readily available for the teams so that the way they can get to going on resolving that outage. Update your document regularly through your postmortems, what you learned, any new indicators that you've identified, and then avoid alert fatigue wherever possible. And then running readiness preparation drills during a regular cadence. I heard someone mentioning about knowing about the fire drills in their office, and they're like, good time to go take a coffee break. So I recommend scheduling them, but then also doing some chaos monkey experiments and just throwing one out there and see what happens. So since I have some extra time, a couple of things. One, does anybody know any good bar jokes? Because I felt like I failed on that one. And two, anyone have any questions?
Questions? Awesome. Thank you, Richard.
All right.
Can I get a big clap for Richard?
Up there.
Go. All right.